we are getting to chat with someone who I know you go way back with.
Yes. No, I mean, somebody that like started my baseball career. You know what I'm saying? I started going to Dusty Baker baseball camps when I was 13 years old. And it just kind of sent me on this trajectory, and got a chance to meet Dusty when I was a teenager. And I mean, I always tell everybody this story. The first thing he ever said to me was, "You can hit, but you need to lose some weight."
And he can hit too. I mean, and I told everybody that, and at the time, and then I remember, I forgot I told him that. And then about 20 years later, he signs a major contract, and he goes, "Hey, man, how am I doing now?" And I said, "Oh, man, you're doing great." And he goes, "Well, I haven't lost any weight." And I
Oh, that's great. What do you remember, Dusty, about first seeing CC as a teenager, other than the weight?
Number one, he was big. He was one of the biggest guys out there, but he was probably one of the best athletes out there too. And I've seen some big guys that hide their athleticism until you see them play inside. I mean, sometimes you go pick out a kid. Okay, this kid has an athletic body. This kid's tall, lean, or whatever. But when I think of guys that are big as athletes, I think of CC. I think of Rick Russell. I think of like Mickey Lowledge. I think of Fernando. Guys that were big, but they're athletes. And he could hit. He could field his position. He could run. I mean, he could do everything, and he had that intangible desire to succeed. And that's something that you can't really measure. How much desire that he has, or how much intelligence, intellect does he have, not only in the game, but, outside the game. And, that's what I remember. And then, he got mad at me, and I didn't even know he was mad at me because I didn't make him one of the leaders, in the
counselor. Yeah.
And I was like, "Really? You've been?" And he goes, "Man, I should have been a counselor." You know what I mean? But I was like, "Hey, man, I didn't pick the counselors, but I did have some say in that." But, that showed me that really, how much leadership quality and skills that he had. The fact that, most people don't want to be a counselor, or most people don't want to be a leader. They just kind of want to fit in, do their thing, and good time Charlies, I call them. But, the fact that, he wanted to lead, and he knew how to lead. And so, which transpired and helped him, throughout his career.
And Ruco, this wasn't just like a day camp. Like, his camp was a week-long camp where we went up to Sacramento. We stayed in a hotel. It was like everybody together. It was like, for me, wanting to, having that impact on a guy's life. And it was just, you had to I had to get a scholarship to go. And it was a huge deal. It was so many great players there. One of my best friends to this day, Nathan Haynes, I met at that camp, ended up getting drafted, playing in the A's organization. Now, just the lifelong, relationships that you forge at Dusty Baker camp was a big deal. And it's still still relevant to this day because I'm still, friends with a lot of these people.
So see, what happened is my dad sent me to the Squaw Valley Warriors basketball camp when I was going from my junior to my senior year. And I was shooting across myself, and I averaged like 12 points a game, but I wasn't that accurate with my shot. And so I went up to the Squaw Valley Warriors basketball camp, and the counselors were Rick Berry, Al Addles, and all the guys from that camp. And they straightened my shot out from here to there, and I went from 12 points a game to like 23 points a game. And I said, if I'm ever, make it to the big leagues, which I thought I was, I didn't think I was going to be a baseball player. I wanted to be a basketball player. I said, I'm going to have a camp because this camp straightened me out, as a kid and projected my career. And, that's the first thing I thought about. And we spent the night, we spent the week in Squaw Valley. And that was the first time I'd ever spent a week away from home. Mm-hmm. My camp was rather expensive, but I gave scholarship, especially to, a lot of the minority kids, Mexican and blacks to that couldn't afford it. And so I'm glad I did. And I've met people like, I went to your camp 35 years ago, 40 years ago, and half of them look older than me, Tater, too. You live pretty hard, you know what I mean? You went to my camp, you know, and we look at about the same age, you know, but, like I urge all kids, their parents, if they could afford it. My dad scraped together like $125 for that week. Mm-hmm. And it changed my life.
That's awesome. See, so that's some of what the camp meant to you. How about, sort of the flip of what Dusty was just talking about? What do you remember most about initially meeting Dusty? Those initial interactions and then striking up a relationship.
I just remember just his personality being the same. He was just super inviting, easy to talk to. And, it was always the same similar relationship that we have now. So I just remember from day one, I remember what happened was like, he showed up to the camp. I was down hitting on the field. And this was like, I was like 13 but the first time I went to the camp. So I'm pretty good at this time. You know what I'm saying? So we taking BP and they like on a knee, lobbing me balls on a knee. I'm 13, like I'm hitting balls fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm smashing balls. So they're like, we got to go get Dusty to see him take BP. So during lunch, when everybody's eating lunch, I'm like, damn, I got to go eat. Like I don't get to eat lunch. But during the lunchtime, they brought Dusty down and I took like normal BP and we had like a 30-minute conversation and that's kind of where it started from there.
That is awesome. Dusty, do you remember? This would be tough, but do you remember that conversation?
Not really.
No. Because I don't really remember it, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's just like, hey, Dusty Baker's talking to me.
I remember him being there for me taking BP. I remember like they doing a special BP for me and him coming down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know something? Jimmy Rollins said I spoke to his church in Oakland. And when he was like 10, 12 years old. And he told me, he says, man, you told me some good stuff, man, that really motivated my life. And I said, well, what did I tell you? He goes, I don't remember.
Well, sometimes you just, you take it with you for the period of time you need it, and then you forget the specifics, but it still helped you, right?
Absolutely.
Well, some people helped me.
Yeah.
Along the way. I mean, I had some the people that I remember most were probably my coaches because they spent more time with me than I actually did with my parents, because I mean, if you saw your parents an hour or two at night, and back then we had to eat all together around the dinner table. Mm-hmm. And if you spent an hour or two, I mean, that was a lot of time. But with the coaches, you might spend 3 or 4 hours every day, with your coaches. And then the coaches back then were also usually your math teacher or a science teacher in school. And so, you spend a lot of time. I mean, they taught me. I remember my parents got divorced between my junior and senior year. And I was missing shots and I wanted to talk to somebody and I didn't know who to talk to, who to entrust that. And I remember Mr. McCullough. He told me, he said, "You're okay?" And because I was missing layups and free throws and, and I've used this to this day when I see a change in personality with one of my players and he's talkative and he's not usually talkative, or if he's loud and now he's really quiet. I said, "Man, you okay?" Because as people, we all want somebody that we can talk to and trust. But you don't know who to trust, and so Miss McCullough asked me that, and I kind of broke down and told her, yeah, my mom and dad got divorced, and I just spilt my guts out, but it made me feel better, and he told me that he had gone through something similar, as a kid, and you'd be surprised of how many people have gone through what we've gone through, but again, you got to have somebody that you talk to and somebody that you really trust.
Yeah.
As a young basketball player who thought that was going to be the sport, Dusty, right. When did you deviate? When did you all of a sudden say, you know what? It's actually going to be baseball for me, or what was the end of the line for basketball for you?
Divorce. My parents got divorced, and I had a number of football and basketball scholarships, and then they got divorced, and then I was oldest of 5. And, the Braves drafted me low. And then about a week before I was supposed to go to school, I prayed on it. I didn't know what to do. Because back then, they had the Jim Thorpe law that if you were a pro in one sport, you were a pro in every sport. Where, where now, I mean, that's such a major decision where now you can go to play pro baseball and go to college and play pro,
football. Yeah.
Whatever. But back then you couldn't do that. And so like in my life, all of my decisions that I've prayed on, I've gotten the right answer, which was right to go play baseball. Because everybody said, "You're playing baseball?" I was all city in football and basketball, and I went to the state track meet, and I was really all nothing in baseball because they were looking for that big kid that hit home runs, and that wasn't me. Like I grew late, just like my son. I mean, some guys mature early and some guys mature late, and so that was the turning point. And then baseball was relatively easy as long as I was healthy. You know what I mean? I was athletic. And then I hurt my knee when I got traded to the Dodgers that winter. I hurt my knee and almost ended my baseball career and playing basketball with Jerry Manuel. And I went to slam on Jerry's brother, and I landed on his ankle. And next thing I know, my knee, I blew out my knee. And so then, and only then, did I fall in love with baseball, because it was almost taken away from me. I didn't realize really kind of what I had, because my whole training at that time was like, let's go play basketball.
Go play hoop.
My mama warned me all the time about going to play basketball and maybe get hurt. And one of the hardest things for me to do was to tell my mama that I hurt my knee playing basketball, because mama, I told you you don't want to hear it, but you gotta stay there and listen to it. And so then my last 10 years of my career, I played on one leg really, and my knee still bothers me now. Back then when they cut you, there wasn't any scopes. Back then they cut you a long line, and then you're in a cast for 8 weeks. And then once that happened, then I had to figure out how to hit, how to play, how to anticipate in the outfield where a ball might be. And then I start seeing things that I hadn't seen before, you know what I mean? Or even look for, and I was like, well, and I was supporting my mom and dad. That's why, and my brothers and sisters, that's why I signed pro baseball in the first place. Was to, support them. And so, things worked out right. I mean, whenever I got a major decision to make now, I pray on and ask for a relatively quick answer, which I don't get all the time. And now my sister, she was a missionary. She got the red phone to the Lord. My prayer take a month or so to get the and so, but I just noticed that when I don't ask for direction and pray on it, then most of the things that I've just gone and done off on my own hadn't really worked out that well. But on things that when I go and ask for direction, it's always worked out.
Where would you have likely gone to college to play basketball and football, Dusty?
Well, I wanted to go to Arizona State to play football. And I wanted to go to San Jose State to play basketball. But I really wanted to go to UCLA, but I wasn't good enough. UCLA wanted me in football and USC wanted me in basketball. And I was backwards back in that day. So my dad, the high school my dad, we transferred to from Southern Cal, was the only blacks in the high school. My last 2 years were me and my brother out in Carmichael. And so, I didn't want to go to a predominantly all white college again, a rich guy college. And my dad was about education. He had signed me up to go to University of Santa Clara. But I didn't know Santa Clara had Dennis Autry, Bud Ogden. I mean, they were playing UCLA, but that didn't really, register to me. And my dad, he was a Baptist deacon. And so my buddy had one of my buddies used to get Playboy magazine every year. And so, I was in there reading the
articles. Yeah.
then the one article was, it said that the 1-2 party school in the country was Arizona State and San Jose State. And then he come telling me, he says, "Oh no, boy, you ain't going there. That's the 1-2 party school in the country." I'm like, I wanted to ask my dad, "Man, did you read Playboy magazine?" But
how you know that? He read the same article you read for sure. That's funny.
That is amazing. My gosh.
I think for young athletes, though, they need to understand what he said for the first part of that answer is that baseball was relatively easy because he was good at the other sports. I think some of these young athletes get so wrapped up in just playing one sport their whole life that's why you get injuries so young. You see Tommy Johns and torn labrums and all these different things because these kids are playing one sport.
But
so
they won't let them play. I mean, that's the thing about it. I mean, my dad in the 8th grade, he told me to choose a sport. And I couldn't because I liked them all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I was pretty good at them all. And if I wasn't good at it, I'd go practice and watch Elgin Baylor play basketball or watch Jim Brown or watch Gale Sayers and them and see a cutback move or something. You know what I mean? And so, I was about studying and I'm still about studying. And I believe that athletes that play other sports, they learn how to roll, they learn how to avoid collisions. They can time the ball on the wall, like a rebound that hangs up on the rim. And I can tell guys that could play, that played other sports, and I can tell by their work ethic. I can tell how they move. I can tell guys that played soccer versus guys that got 2 left feet and they don't know which one is going which direction. And the athletes that I really, really like to have on my team are wrestlers because they know how to train, football players because they tend to be tough, basketball players because they tend to be athletic. Because you can't tell me that half these guys in the NBA couldn't be playing baseball right now. Okay, Allen Iverson would have been a hell of a shortstop, and you know what I mean. Here you go. And I like. And the hardest thing, I try to play them all. The hardest sport that I ever tried to play was water polo. And I lasted about 2 days. I'm like, no, this is too tough here. You know what I mean?
I can't even imagine that.
I was trying to be like Jim Thorpe and Rayford Johnson, All-American. You know what I mean? The decathlon guy. That's what we did, man. I mean, we played from sun up to sundown, especially in the summer, and in the wintertime you play. In the fall you play football, and in the wintertime you play basketball because you're supposed to be in the gym. And the hardest thing for me to play when I signed pro baseball was to play winter baseball in Sacramento. That wasn't no fun, man. It was like 35 degrees and raining, and I'm supposed to be in the gym, and then the smell of summertime. When the springtime comes.
Baseball.
You're supposed to be playing baseball, and in the summer you play with whatever you want to play in the summertime. And we played from, like I said, in the backyard. And I feel sorry for kids that didn't have brothers and sisters because, man, we didn't have anybody to play with. We had each other to play with, me and my brothers, and then we played like me and my brother would play strikeout. He's younger than me, but he was a better hitter than me. My brother Rob, because we play strikeout like right before dark with the dirty tennis ball and up against the garage. And if I struck out on Monday and we played the whole week, my brother, I couldn't strike my brother out. All I did was hit. But that also taught me how to battle at the plate and how not to play how not to strike out.
Strike out, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was big, man, because man, you don't want to pitch for the whole week. You know what I mean?
Ruco, did y'all play that game? Did y'all play strikeout?
We did.
Okay.
We did. Yeah, we played strikeout. Yeah.
Wasn't that fun, man?
So fun. Fun.
We played Burnout. Did you play Burnout too?
We played Burnout.
I didn't play Burnout. We used to play, we play pickle or running bases, like
me out on the pickle.
Yeah.
But you see, I'd hate to play Burnout with him. Because you're up close and you throw the ball right at the waist because you don't know which way to turn your glove.
Yeah.
Right, you get it right in the belly.
But see, Dusty, I have one daughter who just turned 1, but this conversation is making me think I'm going to have to give her a couple siblings just so she has her group to play with growing up.
Absolutely.
That's what this is teaching me.
That's on you and your wife. I ain't in
that. Well, Dusty, there's so many interesting things. I mean, this is just such an awesome conversation. So many interesting things you just mentioned. I want to take it back for a moment because I'm sure some of the people who are listening or watching on our YouTube channel will pick out you saying that you and your brother were the only 2 black kids at your high school in your junior and senior year. Was that right?
Yeah, Sacramento, Del Campo High School, Carmichael, California.
I mean, obviously there's a million different layers to that experience, I'm sure, to dive into. But when you think about, what still resonates most with you from going through that, what is it? What was that like?
Well, and then my sister was the only black girl at the junior high that fed the high school. Then my brother and sister were the only, my younger brother and sister were the only black in elementary school that fed the junior high school. And, what resonates is that, we moved in the neighborhood and then for sale signs came up right away. And then, guys across the street told my daughter to get on her side of the street. And when I look back on the lessons that I learned, I got some real good partners that came out of that. I also had some people that, that were kind of fake and phony, and you learn to see through, different things. But you also taught me probably that most black people have had to learn how to get along to survive with white people more than white people have had to learn how to get along with us. You know what I mean? And that's what kind of resonates. That I got a lesson on different kind of music, different kind of things, period in life. And then I went right from there. And this was 67, 68. And this was right when the movement started in Oakland. Mm-hmm. And then I was mad for a while, and I was going to change my name to Dusty X. And my daddy told me, I brought you in this world, I'll take you away from here. And the one thing he didn't like me hanging out in Berkeley. I could go to Haight-Ashbury, I could go Winterland, I could go anywhere, but he didn't want me in Berkeley. And, that's the first place I wanted to go. And that's the first place I wanted to go, you know what I mean? But and then I went right from there to the South. And Hank Aaron is the reason I signed, because they flew me and my mom against my dad's permission to LA, and I signed in LA and Hank Aaron told my mom that if I had enough confidence in myself to be in the big leagues by the time my graduating class would have graduated from college, then go ahead and sign. If not, then go to school. And confidence wasn't really one of my weaknesses at that time, and it still ain't. But then I went right from and Hank Aaron told my mom he would take care of me as if I was his son. He made me go to church, he made me get up. I was in the big leagues at 19 years old. They called me up, and then that's where I met my roommate, Ralph Garr and Cito Gaston. They were my teammates. And I was always the youngest on the team, probably much like CeCe was. And, I was called the kid all the time. And then I went, like I said, from all white to the South, the segregation. We couldn't get off the bus to go get a sandwich. And then Ralph Garr, really, he's from Ruston, Louisiana, where Grambling is. He taught me how to survive and how to, be in the South, because I wanted to fight everybody or whatever it is. I'm looking at it, get my head bashed in, and when nobody would have said nothing. But I was lucky that I had Hank Aaron, Ralph Garr, Mr. Bill Lucas, who was the first black farm director and ended up being a general manager. As I was blessed to always have a guide, always have somebody to take care of me. I was blessed to always have a mama in every town that would cook for me, that liked me, because they said I was a polite little dude, and they never heard nobody talk like that from California.
But that had to be a complete culture shock going from California to the South, because it was for me even in the 90s. When I went from California to the South, even in the 90s, I was like, what is this? And where am I? And yeah, I was mad too. You know what I'm saying? You see people looking at you a certain way, and you walk in a restaurant and it gets quiet. It's like I had never experienced that in Northern California. And then, fast forward into the, the late 90s, and it's like, this is what it's like.
But see, on the other side, I call, a black girl's house, in the South, and her mama, I could hear her mama saying, "There's some white boy on the phone named Dusty." Still calling his house.
Speaking super proper, eyes.
My students like, who the hell is this?
Oh, that's funny.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh. Dusty, I think just already in this conversation, it's very clear why everything that was said about you when you got the Astros job was said, that you were the perfect person to take over this team, to sort of, help them restore their reputation, to bring credibility back to them after, what they had gone through.
I'd like to also hope that they hire me because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And that's part of the credibility, right? All the years of your success in this league. Right. I mean, Dusty, when you talk about, because you were just talking about like the questions of just asking your players, like, what's going on if you see something going on. And in today's day and age, obviously is heavily statistical for sure, right? And numbers driven. But there's the human element as well. And you clearly have your finger on the pulse of people as well. What?
But you got to have both. You got to have both. And see,
yes. How do you do it? How do you create that marriage as a manager?
I've always had that. I mean, I always had numbers. I always used stats. I always it didn't have a name. It didn't have X2, XYZ on it. You know what I mean? We had pitcher batter matchup, or we had runners in scoring position, or we all I always looked up for my relievers, which guys were good with runners inherited. You know what I mean? Which guys are first batter efficiency? Which guys go out there and give up all CC's runs, but don't give up none of his runs. You know what I mean? You got those guys too, see. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
His ERA is 2.00. But yet still, I mean, we've always had that. And I remember talking to a general manager, and he really put it in focus to me when he says that in many ways we have dehumanized the game. And that was a major statement to me, that you have to realize that this game is played by humans. It's not played by robots. It's not played by, why don't you hit for this guy or hit for that guy? And sometimes I know I should hit for that guy, but I'm trying to build confidence. And that's the thing that the numbers don't do. It doesn't build confidence in the players. I mean, I can't have a guy looking over his shoulder every time he's going to go up the hit thinking I'm going to hit for him all the time. Or I can't take a guy out of the game sometime when his base is loaded and I know this guy can throw up a ground ball double play, but it says you're supposed to bring this other guy in there, but I know that this other guy should be in there, but he's scared to death. And sometimes this guy ain't scared at all. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping that this guy throws up this double play. Boom, now I got a confident pitcher for the next month. And plus my dad, I remember he taught me a valuable lesson. I got up in this tree, right? So, man, it was getting dark. It was like dinner time. And I told my dad to call the fire department or somebody come get me. He said, you got up in that tree. He says, you get out on your own. That I was getting hungry. I was still up in that tree. And so I use that example. Sometimes you have to learn how to get out of trouble. See, as a pitcher, I mean, you got to know, okay, I'm gonna strike this guy out, pop this guy up. Next pitch, I'm a double play. And because I try to tell my young pitchers, I said, because I remember one time we were in Cincinnati, we were facing the Cardinals. And so I asked this kid, at bases loaded, I asked this kid, what were you trying to do? It was 1 out. He said, I was just trying to get this guy out. He struck him out. But then I had Albert Pujols up next. I said, dude, you still ain't out of trouble. Mm-hmm. I said, you want to throw up a ground ball, throw your best ground ball pitch. If it gets through the infield, you've done your job. Okay, all you can do is throw up a ground ball because just because you strike this guy out, now you got the dangerous Albert Pujols up next. You know what I mean? And so I try to talk to him as far as pitching what you need. You know, sometimes 2 outs, you don't mind a little dude to think he got power hitting a 382 foot, no, 300. I don't even want to get that close. 342 foot fly ball to center field. You know what I mean? With 2 outs. And so I just try to help them to help themselves because if I can stimulate your brain, like my brain has been stimulated at times to think for itself, you'll figure it out. Yeah. But I see everybody now going to the iPad or you got to tell them this, which is okay. But some of this you gotta have total recall. That's what Hank Aaron told me. He said, "Man, you gotta have total recall." Because I remember Fernando Valenzuela. They said, "Oh yeah, he's a young kid." Blah, blah. And I remember Fernando hit Andre Dawson hit a home run off of Fernando in April. You know, we didn't have those stat packs and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then come August, he struck him out and threw him a different pitch because he says, I remember in April, and I knew that kid was going to be all right then because he had total recall on every situation. And this is, if you want to be a great ball player, you want to be a great manager, or coach, or whatever, you got to have total recall and have vision that other people and see things that they don't see.
And that's like a little bit of the analytics have taken away development. I think for what he's talking about is just developing your mind as a baseball player and as a big leaguer and understanding, like he's saying, some of these situations that, you know, it may call for left on left, but this righty's got a good changeup. And if he can get out of this, then like you said, I got a confident pitcher that can get me a lefty out down the line, maybe in the playoffs, you know what I'm saying, when I need him. So I think, you know, the analytics have stunted the development of a lot of these players where they just look at the iPad and if the numbers ain't there, like they don't really know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to. It's just because it's all on the computer. So it's nothing up here for them to recall too.
Right, exactly. And I remember one time I had a catcher that just was traded from the team, right? And you know yourself, CC, when you imagine yourself pitching to your teammates, you know, like, how do I get this guy out? You know what I mean? And so I gave the guy the wrong card, you know, cards that they have in their back pocket. And I gave him the wrong card. And he was lost. He didn't even know how to get his own teammates out. I swear, I found that amazing to me because you know, every pitcher I play with, you know, I listen to them. They're like, "Oh man, I know how to get you out," and so I just let them talk. And then once I face him, he gonna do exactly what he said, and then I'm gonna scold him. And then he's going like, "Man, how'd you hit that pitch?" Well, fool, you told me how you told me
exactly. Yep.
Dusty, I know you have a lot to do and got to run. I want to ask you one last one real quick because you've obviously been around this game as a great player and now an incredible manager for a very long time. What do you just think, just watching what Aaron Judge is doing this season? I know it's on a team that's a rival of the one that you managed, but watching his historical season and knowing the greats that you've seen and played with and managed.
Yeah, great is great. I mean, I know the people that he grew up with in Linden, California, which isn't far from Sacramento.
Yeah.
And, you know, they grow a bunch of walnuts and almonds and it's ag country. But I think what he's doing under this pressure of New York City and free agency is unbelievable. And people ask me, well, who's the MVP? But last year, I believe that Ohtani was the MVP, but I can't give it to him. As much as I admire this cat and what he's doing, Ohtani, man, how do you, in modern times, how do you be in line to win the Triple Crown and hit 60 home runs when they were saying that and usually if a guy's hitting a bunch of home runs, he's hitting 230 or 240. Mm-hmm. I mean, so he's not only slugging, he's hitting and driving in runs. And see, that's the most amazing thing are the amount of runs that he's driving in and the amount of runs that he's producing. Because usually, and especially he was doing it in the leadoff, but in the second spot. I mean, he's not in the gravy spots like 3, 4, 5. They're out there for you all the time.
Yeah. And
him, unless you got a tremendous 8th and 9th hitter, which most teams don't, then his opportunities aren't that. And everybody's pitching around him. So I mean, he's my unanimous, MVP. He's a bad boy. I mean, because I didn't think that he was going to continue this pace, especially playing center field.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. And he's not only continuing the pace, but something, he's a hell of a center fielder. I mean, that surprised me, man. He's doing work on both sides of the field.
Yeah.
Dusty, this has been so fun. We could obviously talk to you for hours upon hours upon hours. Thank you so much for carving out time for us during this busy schedule, and congratulations on another trip to the playoffs, and best of luck in October.
We'll be there. I'll see you down the line.
I appreciate you. I love you. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, listen, I'm glad you didn't talk those stuff on the Astros.
I told you it's good now. You there, it's all good.
I know.
All right. Thank you, Dusty.